I'd like to welcome you all. Hello, good afternoon. Or if, like some of today's speakers, you're joining from quite far away, perhaps good morning, or perhaps good evening. I'm Jack Lovell. I'm the industry manager at Cycling Industries Europe, and I'm quite delighted to welcome you to this Cycling Industries Europe webinar on innovation to make cycling safer. We'll be looking into solutions developed by some CIE member companies to tackle some of the most widespread disincentives to cycling, which are bike theft and, well, the lack of road safety. So we've designed this webinar with our Cycling Innovation Network group, which is one of 8 expert groups we have at Cycling Industries Europe. And in each one of these expert groups, we try to drive industry discussions to engage with the European Union and position cycling for what it is, which is a solution to many of the challenges we find ourselves confronted with today. And, well, the focus of the Cycling Innovation Network, as you might have guessed, is innovation. And we're proud to regularly organize these webinars that showcase the wealth and innovation across this industry. And I'd like to give you 3 reasons for choosing today's theme, which is anti-theft and security. The first is there's a dedicated chapter to this topic in the recently adopted European Declaration on Cycling. So we see it's really propped up in importance. The second is pretty simple, but we see that there's a lot of innovation in this field across the board in the cycling industry, with lots of companies looking into how to fight these problems with innovation. And the third is that these solutions that are being developed also mobilize an important digital dimension, and they generate data that actually reinforce the goal we're trying to reach, which is trying to make cycling safer. So with these word of introductions, I'd like to now hand over the floor to our moderator for today, Camille de Cellier, who's been working with us for almost a year now at Cycling Industries Europe. She's been doing a tremendous job. So I'm really glad to hand over the floor to Camille. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Jack. And thank you everyone for joining us today on our 4th Cycling Innovation Network webinar. And today's theme is Safer Cycling. We're very happy to welcome the 5 speakers that we have today. And like Jack mentioned, we're covering quite the globe today. Some of us are joining from Australia, some from Brazil, and the rest of the speakers, Spain and Belgium. So we're covering quite a big part of the world. The Cycling Innovation Network has decided to focus on this specific subject, as it's not only affecting us daily cyclists, but it's also
people.
Mute Till, it's our chairman. It's not only affecting us as daily cyclists, but it's also affecting the industry. So at CIE, we really strive to grow cycling for all, but in order to do so, we really have to tackle the main obstacles that we find as cyclists, which unfortunately are safety and theft. Just to give an idea of the scope of the issue that we're dealing with here, to do this webinar, we did some research and we found that 23% of theft victims will cycle significantly less, while 11% of the theft victim will stop cycling altogether. And when we look at sales, the same study has found that 39% of theft victim will not purchase another bicycle after the theft. So we see very consequential numbers here. And when we look at safety, it's also a massive obstacle for everyday cyclists, as well as for people that are considering taking up cycling. And this is really completely understandable when we see, unfortunately, terrifying statistics that cycling is the only mode of transportation in Europe that has not seen decline in fatalities over the past decade. So as Jacques mentioned, at CIE, we're very proud of the cycling of the European Cycling Declaration that took place earlier this month in Brussels, as it's the first time that cycling is finally understood as a fully fledged mode of transportation on the European level. And like Jacques mentioned, in the declaration, there's a full chapter dedicated to improving road safety and security as a key priority to grow cycling in Europe, which includes, and we will hear about that later on in some presentations, but pledging to accomplish the Vision 014, which means no road death by 2050. I believe some of our speakers will talk about that as well. So all that to say, theft and safety are 2 major obstacles to the uptake and growth of cycling in the world, which is why we've assembled 5 innovators here today that each in their own way are offering a product that is tackling safety or theft issues. But what we found particularly interesting while gathering this panel is, like Jack mentioned, even though the main focus of our speakers is safety and anti-theft, all of their products are also playing an important role in data collection, which in turn will benefit public administration, law enforcement, as well as citizens. as we will see in their presentations. So before we start, I'd just like to remind everyone in the audience that there will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentations, which means that if you have questions during the webinar, please pose them in the Q&A tool that Zoom is offering or in the chat. And we will try to address as many as possible during the question period. So today we will dive into 4 segments of cycling innovation. First, we will see how digital bicycle identification delivers effective anti-theft solutions. And we will see that with Helen Gaspard from Velopass and Julie Sicarini from Smart Serial Number. After, we will hear from Jordi Duran from Uptake on their network of secure, automatic, elevated, and smart parking for bikes. We will then see how C-Sense is empowering cyclists and cities with award-winning smart bike lights with Irene Macalis. And last but not least, we will dive into data-driven insights to identify potential hazards and improvements on the cycling infrastructure with Lane Patrol and Jose Gutierrez. So let's begin with our first speakers of today. First up, we'll have Helen from Velopass. Velopass provides a unique digital ID for bicycles, making them traceable through their life cycle and reducing the risk of theft. The platform connects bike stores, manufacturers, authorities, and more, improving security and collaboration across the industry. Helen will share more about how Velopass is tackling bike theft and enhancing industry connections. So Helen, I'll let you share your screen.
Yes.
Perfect.
Screen?
Yes. Go ahead, Helen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Camille, for the kind introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm Helen. I'm the expansion lead at Velopass, and we are the platform that is enabling effective collaboration in the bike industry through digital bike ID. I will tell you a little bit more about that in a minute, but first let's talk about the problem that is bike theft. Well, if we look at bike theft in the EU, we see that the numbers are high. Each year in the EU, there are 3 to 4 million bicycles that are stolen. And if we look on the other side, on the recovery, we see that only 4 to 5% of those bicycles are recovered in the EU. That is very, very low. And knowing that a lot of people stop cycling because of theft, it's millions of people that, or thousands of people rather, that stop cycling every year. Also, if you look at this number of only 5%, if you're a thief, then actually bike theft, it is a crime without a risk. So you see that really something needs to change here. Now, looking from a thief's perspective, a bicycle is also the perfect object to steal. It has a high value. A bicycle is easily worth thousands of euros today. It's in high demand. Bicycles are becoming more and more popular, and there's absolutely no regulation around it. So unlike a car, for example, there is no need of proof of ownership when you resell a bicycle. It's also very hard to check, and that is why it's just very, very easy to sell after. So you see that there's a real problem here, and now that's where really Velopass comes in. What we are the digital platform that essentially connects an ID, a unique digital ID to each bicycle. And that ID traces the life cycle of the bicycle from end to end. Essentially, you can see it as the digital copy of the bicycle. So when you scan a digital ID, you will be able to find information on parts, maintenance history, service contracts, and the ownership. So really that digital copy. Now, I hear you thinking, but then how does that prevent theft? How does that increase security? Well, on every digital ID, the ownership is registered. So for example, I have my bicycle, my ownership is registered on my bicycle. And if my bicycle would ever be lost, then I could notify that in one click through Velopass. And anyone that would ever find it would be able to see that it is stolen and would be able to notify me. So think about authorities, think about bike stores, someone in the streets, someone that is about to buy a second-hand bicycle. They will all be able to see it and they will all be able to notify me immediately. Now, does that work? Actually, does a digital ID work? Does that ownership registration work? Well, yes, we have some great examples, for example, from France. That is the first country that introduced mandatory bicycle registration. And after 2 years of this regulation being in place, we see that the chance of recovering a bicycle is 5 times higher. And this is only after 2 years. So you see that when you structurally implement something like this, it really has an effect, and a positive effect. Now, that is only, theft prevention is only one of the many applications that digital bike IDs have. Essentially, what a digital ID does is it aggregates information about the bicycle from the start until the end of the life cycle, and making it accessible to the parties involved. So to give you concrete examples of other applications of digital IDs, for example, if you're a bike brand and today you have no information about maintenance patterns to identify recurring issues on your bicycles, well, through a digital ID, now you can do it, and you can do it very easily and fast and structured. Another example is if you're a bike store and you want to stay connected to your clients, provide them personal services even when they're not in your bike store, well, through a digital ID, you will be able to provide a personalized insurance offer, to maintenance notifications, trade-in services, and other things like that. And then if you're a police officer and you want to find the ownership of the bicycle and the status of the bicycle, well, through that digital ID, you are now able to. Now, what makes Velopass different from just any digital ID is that we really aim to break down silos and connect the different actors in the industry. So our platform connects bike brands, bike retailers, insurance company, refurbishers, leasing, and even governments. We really find this collaboration very important because the bike industry is a very fragmented industry that has a complete lack of data standardization. So this collaboration, this connection between the actors is really important to just lay a base for effective innovation. And after only 1.5 years of being active, we already created quite an ecosystem. We work, for example, with a network of almost 1,000 bike stores in 3 different countries. We work with bike brands such as Thompson and Oxford, which might be known to some the Belgian people that are following. We work with major leasing companies such as KVC and Cyclists, and we're even connected to 2 national bike registries, the one of France and the one of Belgium that recently launched, which is also very important to create this international security of bicycles that we so desperately need. So yeah, that's a bit short about us. I like to end to say by that we're really at the start of this journey. Currently at Velopass, we have a little over 25,000 bicycles registered, and knowing that there's millions of bicycles sold every year in Europe, there's still a long way to go and a lot to be done. So yeah, we're really looking forward to work with a number of you and a number of the partners that I mentioned before to really effectively, create this collaboration and this fight against bike theft that we so desperately need in the industry. So yeah, I'm going to end it there. If you have any questions or thoughts, feel free to share. You can find my contact information right here on the screen. So yeah, looking very forward to hearing from you, and going to leave it there. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Helen. Very interesting. Very interesting to see. So now we've seen bicycle tracking on the bike, and now we'll look at different approach to bike tagging with Julie from Smart Serial Number. So Julie is a serial entrepreneur who made his mark in the bike market in 2015 with a digital bicycle insurance brokerage veloseguro.com, becoming one of the main references in bicycle insurance in Brazil. In 2019, he ventured further by founding Bike Hero Insurtech, which is now responsible, among other brands, for the official insurance of Specialized Brazil. In mid-2022, at Eurobike, he launched Smart Serial Number, an IoT company aiming to bridge the gap between product manufacturing and customer experience by replacing traditional serial numbers with digital passports. And in 2023, Smart Serial Number expanded operations to Europe with their new HQ in Portugal, and they also joined CIE. Julie, you can share your screen and start your presentation. Thank you. And turn on your mic, please. Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Can you see my screen?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, just 1 second. Firstly, I would like to thank CIA for the opportunity to speak about our experience on the topic bicycle identification in the age of digital technology. So let's begin. Speaking effective solutions for bicycle identification and how to connect bicycle with their owners to deter theft is not new, you know. And we know that this issue is increasingly common and has negative impact promoting cycling as a mean of transportation in cities. And what do we already know about this specific topic? I could highlight many statements, but I will focus on 5 that I'd like to mention for this presentation. The first one, finding a stolen bicycle is hard for the owner, but tracking down the owner is a nightmare for the police. Over than 40% of cyclists do not have the serial number of their bicycles noted. Some do not even know where it is, or even if it exists. The bicycle recovery rate in Europe, as Ellen said, is less than 5%, while automotive recovery rates reach levels above 60. Despite various initiatives around the world, the results involving bicycle registration are still modest. In French, there is a study released a month ago, increases from less than 5% for 8.5% in bicycle recovery, even with mandatory registration. I can share the source after the presentation. And the last one, until bicycle brands and manufacturers realize they are part of the problem and actively work on this issue, we'll only be scratching the surface. Studying many initiatives around the globe, and despite the effort, which is often commendable, and knowing that the practical result is not being so effective, one question has always intrigued me. Should we try different solutions than the digital versions of old license plates for bicycles? Even a registered bicycle, if it's stolen, if we remove the sticker and it's sold in another country or even in another city, the chances of properly identifying the owner are close to 0. With this in mind, we move to a second question. What is the only official marking on a bicycle that, if removed, would indicate something is wrong? You have 3 seconds to answer. And if you answer serial numbers, you are right. We're talking about serial numbers of a bicycle. Although they are the most relevant marker for identifying the origin of a bicycle, serial numbers, being an analog numeric sequence, do not connect anything to nothing. And you know that everyone in the bicycle industry, whether it is warranty, quality, marketing, sales, product, knows how amazing it would be if each bicycle were connected to its respective owner. So replacing the analog of a serial number with a digital one, the brand can use this digital source as a channel with the consumer, removing barriers to the registration as a bicycle is identified from its manufacturing process through this IoT tool. The customer simply needs to scan, provide their name, email, and phone, and voila. The bicycle is registered, granting access to the brand's benefits, whether it is warranty extension, built-in insurance, or any other financial service. The serial number is digital and the bicycle is stolen, only needs to report the loss or theft on the bicycle index directly on the official brand's website. And the serial number will begin to track and report the irregularity unless the thief removes it. But a bicycle without a serial number cannot acquire insurance, will raise an alert in any repair shop in any part of the globe, and even a potential buyer may become suspicious. The brand can explore tracking technology to produce safer, more connected, and smarter bicycles, transforming this innovation into a desirable object with unique features. One informed and educated consumer will know that all bicycles produced by the brand carry a digital chassis, thus transforming bicycles into true vehicles. Imagine having access to all information about your specific models, tutorials, manuals, videos, exclusive contents, all directly from your smart serial number. Your customer can access all services directly through the smart tag, or in the consumer area, on the brand's official website, reporting theft, transferring ownership, everything your strategy defines. A one-stop shop for everything. Imagine the power of a brand that is connected to different owners of a bicycle throughout the entire life cycle of these products. Smart serial numbers are the digital passport of a bicycle, storing its complex history, whether it is information about materials and components used in its manufacture, or guiding the consumer to the best options for resale or disposal, for example. And yes, we need to remove barriers, provide compelling reasons for customers to register, and educate the market. It's a cultural shift. That's how innovative approaches succeed. And to conclude this presentation, here's my 2 cents for brands. The world has become accustomed to using license plates for vehicle identification, and everything indicates that sooner or later, as we are already seeing, governments will offer equivalent solutions for bicycles, equally limited. The bicycle industry has a historic opportunity to take the lead and offer a digital, intelligent, and effective solution to the problem of bicycle and owner identification before governments take over, as happened with the automotive sector in 19th century. If the industry insists on leaving this void, it will be filled. And the guarantee is that the privileged interests certainly won't be yours. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Julie. Very interesting. And thank you, Helen, as well. Great to see that there's different ways to approach bicycle identification and innovative methods to fight bicycle theft. Thank you to both of you. Just a quick reminder to the people in the webinar. Some of you have already been doing it. Perfect. If you have questions for Julie and Helen, please post them in the chat or in the Q&A, and we will look at them later on. So our next theme to cover in today's webinar is secure parking. So this is an issue that directly affects current cyclists and, of course, potential cyclists. I've recently read that about 50% of all the bicycles that are stolen from fly parking locations, which would mean a place where it's not supposed to be parked, such as a fence or a post, for example. Therefore, really reinforcing the need for safe parking solutions. So Jordi is here to present an innovative solution in parking infrastructure called Uptake. Jordi Duran is responsible for sales at Uptake. He graduated in economic tourism, and it's during his 4 years living in Germany that he discovered the many advantages of daily use of bicycles. Since the end of 2020, Jordi works with Uptake to enable resources to encourage people to cycle more. Jordi, I leave it up to you.
Thank you very much, Camille, for the introduction. I will share my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So first of all, thank you, Camille, for the introduction, and thank you for the webinar organization to all the people of CIE. Before starting, I would like to ask to the people of the audience if they know someone that has been bike has been stolen, or maybe themselves they were victim of a bike theft. Because in all Europe, as my colleague said, a total of between 2.5 or 4 million bikes are stolen every year. And according to a CIE study, the 13% of the contestants just buy another bike. So, and also according to a European Cyclists Federation study, we have seen that there are 2 big barriers that the daily bike user has to face. First of all is the lack of safety for the user. So it concerns the bike path conditions and if they are physically segregated, as you can see in the image on the right. So the second problem that has to face the daily bike user is the lack of safety for the bike. So in terms of parking, if we walk around the most of the cities, we can see such scenarios with bikes with no tires, wheels with no bikes. And such images doesn't get confidence to potential cyclists to get on the bike. And this kind of bikes at the end become what we know as orphan bikes. So just bikes that just get abandoned there and nobody collect them. So which are the criteria that we have to take in account at the time that we select bike parking? So by the user's view, first of all, is safety. There are some components that can be pretty expensive. So that's why safe bike parking should be able to lock the two wheels and the frame. Also, this bike parking has to be user-friendly in terms of that the bike user has enough space to maneuver, enough space to lock all the bike parts without physical effort. And user-friendly is also the taking into consideration the distance between stations. Also, another important fact is the weather protection, if the parking is covered or not. So by the point of view from the municipality or the operator, versatility is if the bike fits in the majority of this bike parking. So it's the compatibility that has the parking to the bike. Also, the materials that as the bike parking, they have to be anti-theft and weather, let's say, proofness. And also maintenance cost should be low. Another important aspect is the aesthetics, in order to be integrated to the urban environment and not to have a very, let's say, big visual impact. Also, the relation between cost and quality should be low, let's say, in that sense. And another aspect is the park time. So we have short period parking, for example, in a high rotation area, for example, in a commercial area where the people leave the bike for less than 1 hour. And by the other side, we have long period bike parking, for example, close to a train station where normally the people leave the bike there, take the train, goes to their work, and then they come back again for maybe 8 hours later. So here we can see a table that makes comparison between 7 of the most, let's say, common bike parking that we can find on the street and on the market. So first is the safety level against vandalism. We think that racks, inverted U, double rack, and unset inverted U, they have a low safety level because they don't isolate the bike from the pedestrians. So hangar has a medium because even they isolate the bike from the pedestrians, all the users share the same space. And by the other hand, lockers and automatic systems, as they have like private space, so they have a very high safety level against vandalism. For weather protection or space for complements, the 4 first solutions, they need for either extra cover to make it safe against the weather conditions. And also they need an extra locker in case that the user want to leave the helmet, the jacket, or the backpack in a safe space. As I mentioned before, the hangar, the lockers, and automatic system, they are covered, so they have this weather protection. And sometimes we can find in the hangar and the automatic system that they have like a special spot where the user can leave these complements. And lockers, usually they have their private space, so the user can live inside wherever they have. Racks, inverted U, and double level racks, as far as I know, they cannot be, let's say, connected to a smart device. And the rest, so the enhanced inverted U, the hangar, the lockers, and the automatic system can be connected. Later on, I will explain how important that is. And also visual impact and investment. So visual impact is also a important fact. This is why I mentioned here before the aesthetics. So the first racks, inverted U double level racks, they have a very low visual impact. Also, the initial investment is low, but as we can see, the secure the parking is, then it becomes expensive. So for our automatic and elevated solution that we propose is our high, let's say, level solution. And I will show you right now how it works. It's a very innovative solution that allows the user, once the booking is validated, to enter, let's say, in the first floor. The user enters with the bike, leaves it on the delivery point. When goes back, the gate automatically opens, and we put the bike from horizontal to vertical, and we store upwards as a, let's say, carousel type. So the concept of having a connected network, it's important because the problem appears not at the beginning of the journey, but at the end of the journey. So I mean, when you are commuting all over the city, when you are going to a restaurant, to the gym, then having a scattered network allows the user to have a safe spot close to the destination. We are also in the 21st century. We owe at least one smart device, and that's why we think that all the stations should be connected to work with this anticipation. Anticipation, I mean, because the bike user, just before starting the journey, should be able to check the availability and book a spot in order to, when they reach the station, make sure that they have the spot there and they can leave the bike safely. Also, in the terms of the, let's say, application architecture, in order to make it, let's say, be integrated for another existing apps, it has to be made by open APIs. So the APIs allows the app to work as an end-to-end solution. For example, in a city that they still don't have a mobility solution, and by the other side, in a city that has already a current, let's say, mobility application, this API allows to be integrated. That's what we know as mobility as a service. And just to sum up, I would like to emphasize this, let's say, 4 ideas. If you want to put more people in bikes, we have to make the bike user feel safe. So that's why I mentioned at the very beginning the 2 barriers that we have to face. That is the safety for the user while riding, and the safety for the user while they have to park the bikes. Also, this e-bike booming that's happening nowadays. We see that the e-bikes, they have mostly 3 advantages. It's that the distance that you can ride becomes longer. You can ride the e-bike on a hilly cities, and also the range of the users becomes wider thanks to this electric help. Also, the concept of network. The user, wherever goes to the city, should have close to the destination a safe spot to leave the bike. And also the concept of having all the stations connected to each other to take advantage of all the data that we can collect, as I said, to work with predictability. And well, that's all from my side. I hope you enjoyed, and if you have questions, I will be more than pleased to ask them just at the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jordi. Very interesting presentation, very elegant solution, I have to say. Not only reducing theft, but also great to organize public space. So I'm excited about the questions that you'll get. So like Jordi mentioned, if you have any questions, some people are already doing it in the chat. Perfect, keep doing that. We are collecting them in the back end, and we will answer as many as we can during the question period. So now turning to more of a safety component of this webinar, CSense is striving to achieve 0 road fatalities, and they indeed recently won a prize. They won the Prince Michael International Road Safety Award in December of last year in recognition of their innovative work in partnership with Transport for London. So Irene McAleese is here. She's the co-founder and chief strategy officer at CSense, a technology and data company specialized in cycling and micromobility. Irene leads the strategy and partnerships aimed at harnessing CSense advanced sensor and AI technologies to create safer, smarter, and more sustainable urban environments. Irene is a member of the CIE Connected Cycling and ITS Expert Group, and she is a previous CIE board member. Irene, I'll let you share your screen.
Can you see that okay?
Yes, you can start the slideshow and then it'll be in slideshow.
Okay.
Or just the big button on the, yeah, perfect.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Great, thank you.
So, okay, hi everyone. Yes, so thank you very much for the lovely introduction, and thank you very much for the invitation along today. So a little about CSense. We are a cycling technology and data company. We're actually based in Northern Ireland, but I am dialing in from Australia today. We're here to set up a sales office down under. But digital is very much part of our story at CSense. We did start in 2013 as an innovative bike light company, but it's really the digital aspect and the data that we're using from the bike light, which is really fueling a lot of the work that we're doing now with cities around the world that are using our data insights. So really relevant. And as Cami mentioned, the European Declaration on Cycling, which was recently agreed, has a whole chapter around safety in particular and calling out Vision Zero. So this is a commitment to work towards Vision Zero, which is no road deaths by 2050, which is a huge goal, really, because when you look at the stats that are happening in Europe at the moment, and I just pulled this up yesterday to have a look at what's going on, it was quite interesting to see that, you know, for all of the other modes, there's actually been a reduction in fatalities, but cycling has actually remained relatively constant. If you look at that top blue line, there's not been a really good reduction happening for cycling in the way that is from other modes. So whatever's been happening up until to date needs to change if we're going to make that impact and to reach those goals. This is, I don't know, I suppose in Europe you've all seen this movie as well, Houston, we have a problem. I like to use that phrase, but essentially this is a challenge because while there's lots of data out there for other modes, from cars in particular, cycling has always been one of those areas where there's been very little data. You know, you've got some data from counters, for example. You might have some survey data or some app data, which each of those have got their own limitations. But essentially, when it comes to safety, the main thing that cities rely on currently to find out where the issues are is unfortunately a police report or a hospital report about somebody who's been hit, and that could be a serious injury or a death. And those records are obviously reactive. This is not the proactive steps that Vision Zero is talking about in terms of the data and the data that's needed to make that shift. So it's a real gap, I suppose, in the current data that's out there. And this gap is really, you know, essentially, if you look at that pyramid, you've got those fatal and serious incidents being reported, but there's a whole lot of stuff that's happening underneath there that's unreported, essentially, which people refer to as a near miss. And so better data that helps to understand those near miss patterns is actually crucial for safety. So a little about what we're doing at C-Sense to try to help in this regard. Firstly, I mentioned we did start C-Sense as a bike light company, but this bike light is really no ordinary bike light. It's actually packed with advanced sensor technology. We used AI and edge processing on the light to react to the rider's environment in riskier moments. And the light is actually flashing brighter and faster when a cyclist is in a riskier moment, but it's also gathering a wide range of data as the cyclist goes around. And the great thing about the bike lights is that this is a really scalable, already a mass consumer product, something that people are happy to use on their bike that already brings them a benefit for safety. So what we're essentially doing at C-Sense is we're making it possible for any bike, whether that's a regular bike, an e-cargo bike, or even an e-scooter, actually, to become connected. And we're gathering a wide range of data, including things like swerving patterns, braking patterns, and those collisions. And these are helping to become those surrogate safety measures for those lower levels of the pyramid that I talked about. We also get information about the road surface quality, how rough or smooth it is as the cyclist is traveling over, which is also can be a contributory factor for safety. We get speed, we get dwell time, and those movement patterns or journeys and that cyclists are taking across their city. So as I mentioned as well, it's not just bike lights now. We can also integrate our technology into fleets. So we do a number of projects now where the technology is integrated into a bike or an e-scooter. So the main difference, people say, well, why would can you not just collect this data using an app, is really quite different because you've got dedicated sensors that are in the product. And they're actually monitoring the environment of the cyclist up to 800 times per second. So that's why we can get extremely granular insights, which are quite different to anything else that's out there. And that's just giving you this really standardized data set, whether you've collected from whatever mode you have or whatever type of bike, it's producing this standardized data set. And as well as the sensor data, there's also survey reports, because people can also use our app that accompanies the light to make reports in the app. So if they wanted to report, say, a close pass, for example, or a pothole or something like that, they can use the app to report that and tag the location. So we work with cities who deploy our devices intentionally out to specific groups of people. And this gives really a mobile coverage across the city. And so you start getting data, connected cycling data, wherever people are riding. And we can also provide that data in near real time as well. And so this is quite complementary, I would say, to other data sets, that are there. So if cities are collecting data through a counter or, a camera mounted on some specific junctions, that's great, but we're carrying data outside of that and looking at different things really in a deeper way. Our data collection also overcomes some of the barriers around being more inclusive, because we can intentionally employ out to, say, women or commuters or different groups that the city wants to make sure they've got insights on. And I know we're quite limited on time, but I'm going to share just a few use cases that cities are using our data for now. Firstly, this is a really interesting study we did with ROSPA, which is the Royal Society for Prevention of Accidents in Birmingham. The 200 cyclists were collecting data, and we actually found a relationship between those police reports, which in the UK are known as Stats 19 reports, and which is the historical crash locations. and the C-Sense data on the swerving and braking. So ROSPA actually recommended in this report that C-Sense data can be used to identify proactively those hazardous locations. We also replicated this working with Transport for London. We had a lot more data across London, and they were able to use the data to help understand the overall risk for cyclists on particular streets, and use this data for modeling and understanding the big picture alongside other data sets as well. So this is really valuable and very innovative data for which we won that Prince Michael International Road Safety Award that Camille mentioned at the outset. The great thing is once you've built this data across your city, you can start to do this before and after comparisons. So, looking at this, these two bridges in London, just to demonstrate, the top bridge has got the segregated cycle infrastructure. The one at the bottom has the painted line, and we can see quite different experience for the cyclists in terms of swerving and braking on those particular infrastructure. So you can get data to show the impact of any changes you've made. We've also done a lot of work to validate our road surface data. We worked with the University of Hasselt in Belgium, actually, who found that the data was very useful for understanding surface deterioration and to inform our preventative maintenance strategy. It's also been used by a number of local authorities in Dublin and referenced by the ITF. And last use case I'll touch on, which I think is quite interesting as well, is using disaggregated data to understand cycling differences. So taking gender, for example, in this study on the right, you can see the blue lines are the journeys taken by male cyclists, and the pink, or the purple, sorry, are the journeys taken by women. We can see that on the dotted lines, this is the dedicated cycle infrastructure that women are tending to choose to stay on the dedicated cycle infrastructure, whereas men, this busy intersection or junction here, are more willing to go through more willing to go through busy roundabouts here that aren't part of the cycle network. So it provides that evidence to show that if you want to attract more women to your network, which is really important for the growth of your overall scheme, that you understand how to design for inclusivity. So I'll pause there. I know there's time for questions at the end, and that's just a quick whip through. But thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Irene. Really, really interesting. And it's really interesting that you started as a bike ride company to make basically the cyclist safer. And in the end, you realize, well, you're making so much more on the safety level with all this data that you're collecting. Exactly. And yeah, it's really interesting. So we'll touch up on that during the question period. So before we turn to the last speaker of the day, quick reminder again, if you have any questions for Irene, please let her know in the chat, and we will take care of that during the question period soon enough. So let's continue the conversation on safety with Lane Patrol, who brings together experts from various sectors, including road safety, mobility, infrastructure, social sciences, telecommunications, software engineer. They have it all. And to present this innovative solution, we welcome Jose Gutierrez. He's an engineer with a master's degree in urban planning from the University of Sheffield, specializing in cycling infrastructure and postgraduate studies in smart mobility at the Polytechnic University of Catalonia. He has been working for several years in innovation and digital products, and he's the product lead at Lane Patrol. Jose, I'll let you share your screen.
Yes, I think I'm sharing now.
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Thanks a lot, Camille. So yeah, hello everyone. I'm Jose Gutierrez, as Camille said. I'm representing Lane Patrol. We work for safe and attractive cycling infrastructure. And here we go. So first of all, I want to give a little bit of the context of what is Lane Patrol, where I'm coming from. So Lane Patrol was born from Factor Consulting, which is a mobility consulting firm, mobility and innovation consulting firm, which works with different axes. So we work with different mobility projects in which we see a lot of challenges. So me specifically, I represent the factory. Let's call it an internal incubator, where we put the hands on getting solutions, digital solutions, to solve the challenges that we see through all the mobility consulting work that we do. As part of those solutions, we have developed Lane Patrol. And now, what is Lane Patrol? Why we started working on Lane Patrol? We saw a challenge, has been mentioned here before in other presentations. We see that road safety is a big issue. There's more than 1 million people are killed every year around the world on the roads, and more than 50 million people get injured. But no, it is an issue, and we know it. But there's also an opportunity, and we see opportunity in the world. But I'm going to talk about specifically Europe. We've been seeing recently the Declaration on Cycling has been signed here in Europe, and this is a great opportunity. We see cycling as a way to reduce road accidents, because when people are moving, when infrastructures are moving to safer, more attractive networks, we see that there's a reduction on the deaths and also on the people that are injured. So we developed Lane Patrol. We see this also an opportunity because we've been working with CycleRap. CycleRap is an international methodology, it's a standard that analyzes cycling infrastructure before things happen. We analyze the infrastructure, so we analyze where are the risks before they are happening. And also, there's one thing that has been mentioned: we don't really have enough data to see when there's someone that is injured. Not all the time this has been reported to the police. So it is important to use this medicine before something happens. So CycleRap works as an easy, affordable and fast method to evaluate the safety of cycling infrastructure. We're leveraging this methodology, and this methodology is important because it's not only coming from us, from Lane Patrol, it is coming from IRAP. IRAP is the International Road Assessment Program, which is an international NGO that has put together universities and entities from the public and private sector to define, based on data, where infrastructure is risky. This assessment is important for, I will say, mainly, but there are other relevant stakeholders that are interested in this data. But think about mobility experts and also decision makers who want to understand this. And one important thing, CycleRap was born in IRAP. IRAP has been working in there's another methodology actually where the adaptation is, what the CycleRap is coming from. This IRAP star rating assessment tool has been implemented in over 100 countries. There are more than 1 million kilometers that have been assessed using this methodology. So we adapted, I said we because we were part of this decision, how CycleRap is built, because it's still renewing. So it has been implemented, it has been accepted. So it is coming, there's a backup of information, backup of stakeholders saying this is a good way to measure, to analyze cycling infrastructure safety. So in general terms, how does this work? Lane Patrol, we have a mobile app that we use to collect georeference images. It helps us map the infrastructure. These images we collect also some other data. We then synchronize it with our Lane Patrol web app. On the web app, we analyze over 40 attributes that then help see where are the risky sections. We actually analyze down to 10-meter sections of any cycling infrastructure, either existing or future potential cycling infrastructure. So we see where are the parts, and also we create then forecasts. We create plans in which we say, okay, if we actually upgrade here, we do some improvements, this will be the result. The idea is to get this data out there so mobility experts, decision makers on the cities and regions can take action on the data that we've generated. And the idea is to start this over and go to red, high risky locations to greener, low risk locations. So a little bit more detail of the solution. We have the mobile app. So it's an Android app that you can use on any phone. You mount it on any bicycle, and then you start collecting images automatically based on pre-designed routes. These geolocated images with some of the metadata, some of the variables, for example, who's the user, where is the exact location, in which city, we send it to our web app. The web app, it's meant for two different type of users. The ones that will be working on the methodology to implement the methodology, and then it will follow with the data, with the maps of colors I will show you later, for the people who want to understand and analyze what are the outcomes of the methodology. What I see here is this is a window for the people who are working with a web app. So here we see that there are different users with different responsibilities, either being the coder of these attributes variables that we analyze on the infrastructure. It could be the manager, it could be the reviewer, because we do quality assurance process. So we have also the communication inside the web app. So we go from the first stage, which is the design of the routes, to collecting the data, coding all these attributes or characteristics of the infrastructure. Then we review that the coding, the variables have been analyzed well, and then we complete. So this is the step in which we do the analysis, then we get the mapping. So we see, for example, here examples of one project in which we define based on these images where the cycling infrastructure is on the sidewalk, where it is off-road, or where it's on the road. We get the information, we get the data aggregated for all the assessed infrastructure. We not only collect that type of data, we also have these attributes coming from the methodology. For example, we analyze down to 10 meters, the width of the infrastructure, if there's a barrier or any light segregation, if there's a curvature, if there's delineation or painting on the ground, on the surface, and it's over 40 attributes that we analyze to every 10-meter segment of the infrastructure. And then finally, we get this score based on the CycleRap methodology. So we get this color map. What we have here is we have differentiation on the 4 different risk level, from low level to medium, high, and extreme. We have separated and aggregated, but the methodology not only gives you a global risk score, it also analyzes 4 different axes. The first one, as you can probably see on the upper left corner, we see, on the left, we see 4 pie charts. On the top one, we see the conflicts of bicycles with vehicles. Then we see the conflicts with other bicycles, then with pedestrians, and then with, let's say, objects or any other type of thing that is not a bicycle, car, or pedestrian. So we have this data all aggregated. So we go from an overall diagnosis of the overall risk to the specific axis. And then we also leverage, from CycleRap, there's this safety treatment model in which we generate forecasts or scenarios of improvements. So what we say, in this specific segments of the infrastructure, you should probably improve or add a barrier, or you should remove the objects that are blocking, or you should change it to the existing facility to specific cycle lane or priority for bicycles. How do we do it? I have an example of one section here. Okay, in this project, we see this specific section, and we see, okay, what's happening here? We have, in the middle, we have these safety performance indicators. We have the CycleRap score, so the risk score, also the 4 axes. We see that we have a 67 in red, so this is a high risk, overall risk. But then we say, there's a suggested treatment. Upgrade existing facility to an on-road bicycle lane with safety barrier. If you do so, it will go down to 15 and a green level, so low level of risk for this specific section. We also have this information aggregated. I will show you later. And then at the very bottom, we give from all the attributes that we analyze, from all the characteristics, we show which ones have the most impact. Why is the risk this high? So we see here, for example, we have a adjacent road lane within 1 meter right next to the cycle lane. So this is the main attribute that is impacting the score. This is another example in which it says, if you will widen the facility, we will lower the risk from a high risk in red to medium risk in yellow, for example. And then we have this aggregated data. We have this forecasted as a complete project. So we have here a pie chart that we have a lot of red and yellow on the left. But if we will take everything that if all the roads that have over 30 kilometers per hour, to lower them to 30 kilometers per hour, we will see the change. We will reduce the risk. So this is something, one approach that a city can say, okay, probably this is important because we see from data that we can reduce the risk. This is another example. What if whatever we suggested with this model, suggested treatment model, that we should add a barrier? So only on those sections where this was suggested, we do the changes. we also see that the pie chart from the left changes from having 53% in yellow, so medium, to 50%. But more important, the high risk of 32% goes to 21%. So we see the changes, what will happen if we do some of the work. So automatically, we give these scenarios to reduce the risk on the infrastructure. We've been working in different countries and cities. I think for the sake of time, I can skip this. So if you're a cycling enthusiast and you want to test lane patrol, or if you represent a city or region and you would like to see how lane patrol can be implemented, well, let's have a virtual coffee or a real one if you come over to Barcelona. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jose. A very interesting presentation once again. Great to see that one product can simultaneously serve the cyclists and city administration. So thank you very much for presenting. And now that all of our speakers have presented their products, I'd like to continue the conversation and open the floor to questions from the public. So if you haven't already, you can use the Q&A tool or the chat. We've been collecting some questions here in the background. Jose, if you could stop sharing your screen. Thank you very much. Yeah. So we had quite a lot of questions, actually. Maybe I'll start it off this way. We had a lot of questions about, for Julie and Helen to start, on cross-border trafficking, because unfortunately in Europe, this is quite a problem for bike theft. And a lot of people were wondering, actually, how can your product cross a border? Can it cross a border? Or how is this addressed in your product? Are you aware of any initiatives that would support cross-border enforcement, or maybe a cooperation network between, maybe this is more of a European question, Julie, but if you had any thoughts, I'd be happy to hear you, Helen and Julie.
Yeah. At Velopass, our product works across borders. So anyone that would ever scan the Velopass with their camera of their phone or would type in the Velopass code would be able to find the status and would be able to notify the owner. So this works anywhere around the world. Of course, if we look at national registries at Velopass, we are connected to two in Europe. So that's the French one and the Belgian one. Yeah, those two registries, they don't work across borders, but at least what we aim to do is connect those different registries so that the law enforcement in France, in Belgium, and anywhere in Europe could really use that Velopass ID to bring the bicycle back to the rightful owner. So yeah.
Thank you. Anything to add, Julie, on this?
Our approach is different because we understand we are giving the opportunity to replace the serial number. So imagine if a specialized is produced in some factory in Singapore, for example, it will be sold in all parts of the globe. And if the bicycle is stolen in the United States and we bring the bicycle to Brazil, the serial number will shout. So don't matter what we believe. If the bicycle is stolen, they will need to remove the serial number, and it will be harder to resell the bicycle. It will be impossible to make an insurance. We don't beat the problem, but we will fight the problem. Because it's harder to resell the bicycle, it's less interesting to stole the bicycle. That's our vision.
Yes, I see. Thank you. Maybe a bit of a follow-up question, maybe more for Helen, because your product is on the bicycle. I see some of the questions were about maybe a damaged bike, if the sticker maybe is scratched, or how do you deal with dismantled bike? Because people steal certain parts and then would reassemble it. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, so those are very good questions. And I think it's a question that we get most of the time. It's like the first question everyone asks. So yeah, at Velopass, we really have two options for the digital ID. So either it's used in the OEM, so it's the manufacturer that adds the Velopass already underneath the varnish layer. So then it would mean that the ID would not be able to be removed without seriously damaging the bicycle. And the second option we have is, of course, the aftermarket sticker that bike stores or other actors can use. And yeah, that sticker is really hard to remove, but yeah, if you really, really do your best, you would be able to to remove it. However, we do have a solution for that, because at Velopass, our base registration is based on a brand and frame number combination, which we see as unique. So you can actually compare it with a car. A car has a VIN number and a license plate. A bicycle has a Velopass ID and the brand and frame number combination. So it means that even if the Velopass ID would be removed, then it would still be possible to find the status of the bicycle based on the brand and frame number combination. And for example, if that thief that stole your bicycle removed the Velopass and then wants to register their bicycle on their name, because it's not theirs, then it would be impossible, because that combination of brand and frame numbers already used. So that's really how we fight that problem. Yeah.
Okay, I see. Thank you very much for your answer. We had some questions about parking as well to Jordi. So some people are wondering, so cycling should be inclusive, and a lot of parking solutions kind of assume that a bicycle has the same shape always. And this person here is wondering, what about parking for bigger bikes, maybe cargo bikes, three-wheeled bikes, for people with disabilities? Do you have any, is your company considering these obstacles? Are you thinking of upgrading or new services? What's your take on this, Jordi?
Yeah, of course. As you said, bicycle must be inclusive, and all these kind of bikes has to take into consideration. And actually, there are some, let's say, some solutions for that kind of bikes. And I think that if we want to take, we want to remove more cars from the cities, let's say, one of the best solutions could be the cargo bike, no? Because, for example, there are people that they are not willing to take the bike or use the bike for go shopping because they carry the bags, and they say, okay, it's for me, it's easier to use the car or the public transport. But for example, if we use the cargo bike, it's easier to carry these bags. That I'm absolutely agree that we have to let's say develop or give tools to develop to this kind of bicycles. And I think it's matter of time that because also the cargo bike is not as used as a regular bike, let's say. But in my opinion, it's matter of time that the people discover the advantages of using cargo bikes, and the markets or the users will demand this kind of facilities. But at least, I mean, in Spain, maybe it's not that common as I saw, for example, in Germany, that the people use that to bring the kids to the kindergarten. But I think it's a matter of time that these kind of bicycles become more popular, and in fact, so they will need safer infrastructure, because they are also much more expensive than a regular bike. So I think it's a matter of time that they will be taken into consideration.
Okay, great. Thank you for your answer. Yeah, of course, they're taking a lot of cargo bikes these days. We can continue maybe with Irene. Some questions are, some people are wondering here. So of course your lights have insane trackers. They track 800 times a second. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
So some people are wondering, can you adapt that so to add some active safety features such as communication with cars in the surrounding, especially in the growth of self-driving cars? Do you have any input on that?
Yeah, I do have some thoughts on that. So yeah, we are able to send data in near real time from the device. I guess there's a couple of options that we could explore around that. And one of the things that I guess we're not so interested in actually is this idea of the bike communicating directly with the car. This is the sort of like bike to vehicle communication. I'm just not a fan of it, actually. I see there's a lot of limitations with that, because ultimately not everybody is going to have a C-Sense device on their bike, and I think that creates a lot of equity issues. However, there are some really good near real-time use cases for the data. And a couple of things that we are looking at, well, firstly to do with the self-driving vehicles is that they could learn where those hotspot areas are that sea sensors identify, so that they know when they're coming into an area which has had a lot of conflict with cyclists in the past. So this way the sea sensor learnings are shared essentially makes it better for all riders, rather than just a single rider. And the other thing that's quite interesting as well is, around traffic optimization, looking at priority for cyclists at junctions. So bike to infrastructure communications and being able to talk to traffic lights, for example, get a green run for cyclists. So that's a nice kind of use case for that real-time data. Otherwise, the lights already react to their environment. They will flash brighter and faster, and provide a boost of daylight visible level brightness to other road users in the riskier moments.
Great, thank you for your answer. Yeah, I find it quite interesting when you say communicating with the green lights. Yeah, I would love a perfect ride every morning.
Haven't done it yet, but it is possible. So if anyone on the call is interested to do it, let me know. But yeah, that would be a really interesting use case to work on.
Maybe staying with you, Irene, of course, you're collecting a lot of data with your products, and some people are wondering, but I suppose this is your product, but are there any plans of making the data that you're collecting available to local authorities, which I suppose is what you're doing with Transport London, for example? What about the European Union? Are you working with the Commission on this?
So we absolutely do make the data available to local authorities. That's really the business model, is that we partner with the city to deploy the devices. We make the aggregated data insights available to our city partners who use it for improvements in the city. Where part of our role, part of the reason we engage with CIE actually is because we want to learn how we can share our data back through different models, particularly in Europe. I know that NAPCOR is looking at creating a standardized way of gathering cycling data insights. So we're hoping to align to that as much as we can, so that it is possible to share our data in a really standardized way. Otherwise, we're open to partner with any with the Commission or DG Move in other ways. So if anyone has suggestions, please reach out.
Right, thank you. A question for Jose and Irene, maybe because both of you are collecting data in that sort. Do you find that there's some form of data in cycling that we are not paying enough attention to, not leveraging enough? Is there something that's lacking in your opinion in terms of collecting data in this field?
Sorry, what do you mean? So I couldn't really understand the question. Sorry, Camille.
So we're collecting tons of different types of data. Is there something that you would say we are not focusing enough on, or something that's missing, just in terms of the cycling industry as general? What do you think on this?
Yeah, well, there are two things that I can think of. Now, we see that most of the accidents happen in intersections. So I think that we should measure in detail more. And actually, there's something that we want to work on in the future, like really understanding what are the details, what are the different things that happen in intersections. We see that, like, if we can focus on that, we have 90% of the accidents. That's one thing. And something actually that I invite people, if you're here in the call, there's something that we don't always find easily. We see that one of the main variables that affect the risk when we are doing the assessments is the operating speed of cars passing right next to the bicycles. So we've been talking with that's something that we're not doing now. Like, we're not analyzing this. Sometimes city has it. Sometimes some cities or regions don't really collect this data. Sometimes, depending on where, probably bigger cities do have it. But probably there should be some other opportunities to get this data automatically with using AI, using remote sensing. So that's something that I think it's missing.
And I'll maybe just quickly add to that two quick things. One is single bike crashes. There's very little data about single bike crashes, because although Jose mentioned at junctions, it's interesting to look at that single bike crashes do actually form a very high percentage. It's not the highest, but it is still quite a high percentage of overall crashes. And they're just so underreported because if somebody's not hitting a vehicle, there's no data. They really don't. So that's one thing. And the second is, I think, better data about the diversity of riders who are using the network. So, you know, I did have the slide about gender, but also age. You know, on the stats that I just looked at for Europe, one of the biggest categories for the increase in cycling deaths actually is actually the higher age group. So what's going on there? We need to understand more about, you know, how are our networks performing for a really diverse range of people. So I think more data about a broader range of people is really important to get as well.
Absolutely. Very, very interesting. Thank you, Jose and Irene. Jose, maybe a more specific question to you. Some people are wondering if you have been able to test an area before and after the intervention has been installed. Could you maybe share a specific example if you have one?
Yeah, actually, I need to say that so far, nothing has been implemented using Lane Patrol. Our first project was finished the second semester of last year. So I mean, one thing is to, you know, use the data and analyze it, and the second thing is to actually have the budget to change things. So I think we're pushing, and I think that's exactly what we're doing. Like, if we have the data, that's like we want to push authorities to these changes. But sadly, so far we haven't done it. We hope that probably at the end of this year we will have some information regarding this.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. A question back to Julie and Helen. So, as Helen mentioned, you work mainly with bicycle shops as well. But what about when someone buys a bicycle online or a new bicycle? How can you implement your solution in that scenario?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, Julie, you can go first. Go first.
yeah, as I said, when we can offer the integration with the retailer, if they have a system to connect the invoice with the serial number. But the common way is when the customer receives the bicycle, the brand, as they do on their website, they will offer to register the bicycle. And since you register the bicycle using the QR code on the bicycle, it will be starting the process of connection with the brand. So what we do is to remove the information that for you is hard to know, the serial number, what it is, the model. It's all inside the embedded on the product. You just need to provide your name, telephone, and an email.
Helen, do you want to continue on that?
Yeah, so it's quite similar. In any case, yeah, if online platforms are able to attach the digital ID to the bicycle, that's great. And if it's not the case, there are indeed other solutions, like Julie mentioned, where if there's absolutely no data, they can ask the cyclist to register themselves, or if they have certain data, they can already connect it to the ID and send it to the cyclist with it for them to then finish the registration. So there are different ways that are available to do it in steps. But of course, in the end, what we aim to go to is that every bicycle that is produced will have an identification with the data connected to it to after enable the cyclist to just easily register their bicycle and protect their ownership.
Perfect, thank you. Maybe a question a bit more general, because of course all of you are working with data, and a lot of people in the chat in the Q&A were wondering, how does that comply with GDPR restrictions? Is that an obstacle for you, or how do you approach this obstacle? If someone wants, yeah, Jose, go ahead.
No, just something quick. So we collect images, and basically what we do, we blur license plates and faces, for example. This is something that we do just to keep the images.
Yeah, as oh, as Velopass, we're also fully GDPR compliant, so there is no personal information shared with anyone without a specific consent. Also, in the case of theft, when you report your bicycle as theft, anybody that scans it will be able to see that the bicycle is stolen, but of course will not be able to see whose bicycle it is. They will be able to notify them without knowing who's on the other side. So that ownership, that information is really protected.
And in our case, imagine the same as registering your bicycle in the brand's website. The brand owns the data. Smart Number don't owns the data. The brands owns, and the brands can share, and if you permit, with if you allow, with insurers, with governments, with the police, but the data is not ours.
For CSANS, what we're doing is working with crowdsourced data. So I guess the interesting thing is not the individual trip that somebody makes, it's the patterns that build up over a number of different rides. So that's where we can see, you know, where the heavy areas of swerving or braking are over many people's experience. For example, so we're sharing only aggregated data or insights. So that's how we protect privacy of the individual there predominantly. I mean, in our experience, cyclists are happy to share aggregated data if they know there's going to be an impact for them, right? So if they're, you know, if you're helping to improve conditions for cycling, then sharing those aggregated data insights seems to be something that cyclists we work with are very happy to do.
Thank you for the answer, everyone. Maybe a quick question to Irene, and we are arriving at the end, so maybe it might be the last question. So Irene, as you mentioned, your business model is to sell the data to partner up with cities, but at the end of the day, you are selling a product to a cyclist. So we're wondering a little bit, how do you market your product? And what are the obstacles that you see in consumer uptake for your product? And maybe we can continue the question with other people, but Irene, I thought this was more for you.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, we do have a kind of a double-sided business model. So there is a B2C, business to consumer sales, but then we also work directly with cities who maybe don't have enough coverage from the lights organically through those sales, who want to boost the number of lights in their cities. So as I mentioned, a project in Birmingham, they had a package of 200 lights, and then we work with them to deploy. And on the B2C side, fundamentally, people buy the bike light actually because it's an excellent bike light. And it competes out on the market with other bike lights. So we're British Cycling's preferred bike light supplier, Cycling Ireland's preferred bike light supplier. Cyclists just like to use the light. But a number of cyclists can then, you know, they aren't automatically opted in to share data for the B2C products, so they can choose. It's up to them if they want to share data or not. And if they do choose to opt in, they unlock additional features in the app, like a crash detection alert, theft detection alert, personal ride stats, and other host of connected features as a benefit for sharing the aggregated data. And we have a really high opt-in rate voluntarily. And I think actually, while there's a lot of what's in it for me, of the crash detection alerts and the theft alert, quite a lot of people that we have surveyed said they actually just like the idea of cities having access to data that could potentially improve conditions for cycling.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to follow up on that, on how they market their product or how they see obstacles in consumer uptake? If not, no problem at all. We're arriving at the end, so I'd like to thank everyone in the audience, all of the speakers once again. Irene, thank you so much for making yourself available at this time of the night.
Problem.
Everyone, also Julie, Helen, Jose, and Jordi, it was a great session. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for the questions. I'll just hand it over for the final word. I'll hand it back to Jacques, the industry manager at CIE. And with that, thank you everyone. Jacques, you are muted.
I was about to say I had the easy job of concluding things and I still managed to screw it up. So sorry about that, but I think you've all done a fantastic job. I'm really grateful to all of you for joining us today. And of course, I should also thank our audience for joining us today. We've had over 100 people tuning in, and we've had some really good engagement with the questions and some nice appraisals too. So thanks for that. And second, I'd obviously like to thank our speakers today. So that's Helene, Julie, Jordi, Jose, Irene, and of course Cami for the moderation. And I think on the back of what we've heard today, we can really take stock of the fact that the industry is serious about making cycling safer and delivering solutions and preempting. As it was mentioned, you know, it could be preempting a more authoritarian approach from government that could turn out to be detrimental, as I think Julie pointed out. It's important that solutions come from the industry, and I think that they work. I think we should highlight the fact they work thanks to collaboration and mobilizing digital technologies. It's also interesting to see, I think, that these solutions are boosted when the right policy measures and government support are put in place. And in some cases, and this is something we see a lot at CIE, the right policy decisions can even create new markets or significantly enhance the breadth of markets. And that's core to our thinking of Cycling Industries Europe. So with that in mind, and you might see that up on the slideshow right now, we've just released our manifesto. I've included a link in the chat as well. We've outlined 10 priorities to the EU to build upon the EU Declaration on Cycling and turn it into a reality on the ground. So that's going to be really important over the next 5 years and a core part of what we'll be doing at Cycling Industries Europe. Because this is the way we see a really important way of growing cycling and developing the industry. So please take that link, read the manifesto, talk about it, share it, bring it to the attention of your colleagues, of policymakers, etc. We want to give that manifesto a lot of visibility at this moment in time. And obviously, we don't just stop at manifestos. There's a lot happening in our world at Cycling Industries Europe, so you can keep track of things. You can sign up to our newsletter. And if you're developing cycling services or products and you're not yet a member of Cycling Industries Europe, I would just say, well, please join us. It's a good time to join CIE. So with that in mind, I'd like to thank again our audience, our speakers, our moderators, and invite you to stay tuned to ride your bike and hopefully see you soon.